We are here. It is time for yet another episode of Star Wars Unlimited. And once again, I do not need these headphones. It looks like Fantasy Flight Games has decided that December is preview month because holy crap, we've got a ton more previews to go over. And we have the deck lists for the FFG live stream, which was the developer deck build live stream, where they played decks. They didn't necessarily build them in front of us, obviously. They played decks that they had built for the stream specifically, and we had some interesting builds here, and we had some interesting results. So let's start with the previews. Our first previews come by way of the Nerds Strike Back YouTube channel. We've got 2 previews linked here below, and these are bangers. These are bangers. We have here Benthic 2 tubes, Partisan Lieutenant, 1 cost, Aggression Ground Unit, 2 power, 2 health for 2 tubes. Rebel Trooper, on attack, another friendly unit gains raid 2 for this phase. It's number 156 out of 252 in SOR, and it is an uncommon. Benthic is a banger. Any aggression deck is going to run 3 copies of this, as long as you have the critical mass of aggression units that are in your deck, which you probably will, because aggression is very good with units. I've already put this in my Sabine deck. You're probably going to see that at a later date. By allowing your ability to throw Benthic into your deck, it takes a little bit of a build, but on round 1, if you have 2 1-cost units, Benthic and another one, you can potentially set up Benthic to do extra damage with your unit when it attacks to be able to attack at a later date. You can end up pulling a lot of damage from this card. Benthic 2 tubes with a Green Squadron A-Wing and Red 3 on the board means that Green Squadron A-Wing, if it is able to get its attack out, is going to be dealing 6 damage off its attack. 1 from its own attack, 2 from its own raid, 1 from the raid from Red 3, and then 2 from the raid from this, as long as this is able to attack to do so. Benthic 2 tubes is nuts. And I don't see any reason why you wouldn't run this in every aggression deck you possibly can. Next, we have another rebel, but this one's a droid. And we have K2SO, Cassian's counterpart. 4 cost, aggression, heroism, ground units, 4 power, 4 health, overwhelm. That means that any damage that is left over from attacking a unit goes into your opponent's base. When this unit is defeated, for each opponent, choose 1. Either deal 3 damage to that player's base, or that player discards a card from their hand. This is a rare, number 145 out of 252 in SOR. K2SO is probably going to be, if you're doing a regular aggro deck, the highest cost unit that's going to be in your deck. Some people will want to run black 1, and some people will want to run Mace Windu, but those are likely going to be in a decks that are either more mid-range or more late-game pseudo-control-y based, so they can keep their units on the board and do attacks. K2SO being a 4-cost card that is a 4/4 with Overwhelm that also deals damage when defeated, means that you can drop this on your round 3 if you have those 4 resources, and set it up to be defeated. Slam it into a problem unit on the next round, and not only will you be able to take care of that problem unit, if there's any damage left over, that hits the opponent's base, and then your when defeated effect will also hit your opponent's base. Anything that's 3 health, you're going to deal 4 damage to your opponent's base when you slam this into it. And conveniently, Cell Block Guard, one of the more popular sentinels in the game, is a 3 attack, 3 health unit. And on that aspect, actually, K2SO would survive that attack. Needless to say, K2SO is a very strong card for the Rebel aggression build, and it'll be interesting to see what a potential future Cassian unit or Cassian leader will do to aid this character in being able to get its goals accomplished on the board. Next, we have 2 cards here from, and I apologize if I butcher this name, but I believe it is the Hunter Friends Brettspiele YouTube account. This is a YouTube short that previewed a couple of large cards, and I believe I will have at least good enough quality images that were either shown at a later date or given to us directly from that specific short preview section. But we have an event and we have a unit. So let's start with this event. We have here Keep Fighting, a 2-cost aggression tactic event. Ready a unit with 3 or less power. It is a common, number 169 out of 252 in SOR. Keep Fighting is a very interesting card because for 2 costs, you can ready a unit with 3 or less power. We've seen other things that can take advantage of this style effect and things that can use this effect specifically. So Grand Inquisitor is probably going to run 3 of this because it doesn't deal damage to the unit that's being readied, and it wants to keep readying units to keep attacking with them. If you don't have an upgrade on 5th Brother, this works really well well of keeping Fifth Brother being able to attack and attack and attack and attack, because he gets raid, not grit, for his attacks, for taking damage. A lot of players I've seen are running this in 3 in aggression decks because they value the ability to ready that unit and get another attack. I don't discount that. For me personally, though, I would not run this outside of a limited environment, draft or sealed, because you're sacrificing tempo in your turn to be able to ready the unit. Sure, you can get an extra attack, but what's your opponent going to get as a result of you not dealing with something on the board? I've heard that argument used for other cards, and I've discounted that argument in specific situations, but I think that argument actually holds value for this specific card. Now, if you like this card, please run it. That kind of goes for anything, including 25 health bases. It just doesn't hold value to me, but I see its value overall. Next, we have a card that helps a leader that we saw last week, and that is Delmico, providing Overwatch. 3 cost, Vigilance Villainy ground units, 3 power, 3 health, Imperial Trooper, restore 1, so when it attacks, you heal 1 damage off your base. Each event an opponent plays costs 1 resource more. It is a rare, number 34 to 252 in SOR. Delmico is the sniper of Inferno Squad and a very cool trooper. Iden and Delmico eventually go on to join the Rebellion and then by extension join the Republic during the First Order era and do a lot of things that involve trying to save the galaxy from destruction in that. Delmico fits right into Iden because 1, it allows you to continue Iden's healing style to keep getting damage off of your base, but it continues the control aspect of that deck by when this drops, your opponent has to pay an additional cost for events, which is huge. Your opponent is going to play, let's say the last card, Keep Fighting, for 2. Well, Delmico comes down and says, no, you got to pay 3 for it. And that goes for anything. That Overwhelming Barrage that you thought you were going to pay 5 for, now you got to pay 6. That Overwhelming Barrage that you're running out of aspect that you had to pay 7 for, now you got to pay 8 for it. It's probably still worth it. Needless to say, Miko is definitely a great card that will put pressure on your opponent, not in just the restore, but also making all of their events cost a bunch more. And most decks are running about 20% of their deck in events. And if this comes down early enough, that means your opponent won't have the extra resources that they thought they were going to have without taking this out first. And if my opponent is taking this out and not my other strategies or my base or, you know, any of the other aspects that I want to keep on the board, that's perfectly fine with me. Our next cards come by way of the FFG live stream where Jeremy and Tyler used decks that were built to face off against each other. And we got some Cunning, which I'm happy with, but more Cunning previews, plus a couple of aggression previews. So let's go ahead and check it out, starting with Bodhi Rook, a 3 cost double Cunning ground unit, Imperial Defector, 3 power, 3 health, Imperial and Rebel. When played, look at opponent's hand and discard a non-unit card from it. It is a rare, number 201 and a 252 in SOR. Bodhi is one of the few units in the entire game that is going to be both Imperial and Rebel. Tyler specifically said that this was a great opportunity for them to utilize that specific tag so that it goes in either deck if you want to, but it's probably one of the few units that will be able to do so. I feel like Callus probably should have been another unit that could have done that, but maybe we'll get a future Callus that's at least just the Rebel version of him. But Bodhi continues the control style aspect that Cunning uses to be able to eliminate cards from your opponent's hand. This time, rather than taking out any card, it's taking out a non-unit card, which means you can take out upgrades or you can take out events, which are very handy because events are definitely the most powerful cards of the game, but upgrades, specifically upgrades like Fallen Lightsaber or Jedi Lightsaber or Snapshot Reflexes, can deal a lot of damage in a way that you are not potentially prepared for. And Bodhi says, you know what? Nope. And that's fantastic. Next, we have a very cheap Cunning unit, and a really good one. This is the Crafty Smuggler, a 2-cost Cunning ground unit, 2 power, 2 health, Underworld, shielded, so when you play it, give it a shield token. It is a common, number 207 out of 252, and SOR. This is an easy round 1 play if you're playing Cunning, whether that's Cunning Heroism or Cunning Villainy, double Cunning, Cunning, not Cunning, whatever. Throw it onto the board, get a shield. Now your opponent has to use 2 things to try to take it out, unless they use something like Takedown on it, which would be ridiculous. It's Underworld. This is probably my favorite part of this card because there's a lot of really good Underworld cards that exist, and I'm hoping in Shadows of the Galaxy we'll get some Underworld aid, things that make it so that the Underworld trait actually matters on these cards. Other than that, it's a generic 2/2 for 2 that gets a shield token. That's really good. Next, we have one of my all-time favorite spaceships in Star Wars, because it was one of the first spaceships I got to fly in Star Wars Galaxies all the way back in 2004. This is the Cartel Spacer. 2 cost, Cunning villainy, space units. 2 power, 3 health, underworld vehicle fighter. When played, if you control another Cunning unit, exhaust an enemy unit that costs 4 or less. This is an uncommon, number 178, I believe, out of 252, and SOR. If I remember correctly, this is called an M3-A Interceptor, and it's the starter ship for the neutral spacer faction in Star Wars Galaxies. This is a great unit because not only is it a round 1 space unit that you can play that can help you control the space arena and continue to deal damage on following rounds. If you play it in the late game, as long as you control another Cunning unit, you can exhaust an opponent's unit that costs 4 or less. So if you wait until round, let's say 2, 3, or 4, while you have another Cunning unit on the board, this can be your first play in that round to be able to say, you know what, that Spec Force soldier cannot, I'm exhausting it this turn, or a K2SO, or a 5th brother, or whatever costs 4 or less that you don't want to be attacking in a given turn. And this could also go for things in space. Cartel Spacer is a fantastic card that basically fits in every single aspect of what Cunning wants to do, and I imagine that most Cunning villainy decks are going to end up running 3 of these, simply because, again, it works in the early game, it works in the mid game, it works in the late game, it does things that Thrawn wants to do, it aids things that Boba Fett wants to do, and who knows what other Cunning villainy leaders we're going to get in the next set of Shadows of the Galaxy that can also utilize this effect. All right, that's enough Cunning cards. How about a Vigilance card? How about a big Vigilance card? This is the Redemption Medical Frigate. It is an 8 cost Vigilance Heroism space unit, 6 power, 9 health, Rebel vehicle capital ship. It has Sentinel. When played, heal up to 8 total damage from any number of units and or bases. Deal that much damage to this unit. It is a rare, number 52 out of 252 in SOR. If you recognize this ship, it is from Empire Strikes Back. This is the medical frigate that they brought Luke to so that they can put a robotic hand on whichever arm got cut off. I forget exactly what it was. I think it was the right one. Cool little ship. Couple of things about this ship. It's expensive, but having 9 health means that it's going to survive a lot of damage. However, this effectively says pay 8, heal 8 damage off your base, and get a 6/1 Sentinel in space. That's huge. Or my important leader that I need to save, I'm going to heal all the damage off of it and put it on the Redemption. The idea of the Redemption is damage displacement rather than just straight heal. Your opponent will probably be able to clear this off the board pretty easily unless you choose not to use its when played effect, because it does say up to, and 0 is up to 8. But you're probably going to want to do something that makes it so that you get use out of this when played effect. And then also the fact that it still is 6 attack coming at your opponent. Every round that you start with this on the board, you activate this thing to attack for 6 to your opponent's base or another unit or whatever, and then your opponent still has to deal with it, right? This is a fantastic card. I think this is probably going to be a top tier pick for Luke decks and is the capital ship that he's been looking for his list. Home 1A is good, but we'll see what ends up happening with Luke if he wants to be using command or if he's just going to stick with vigilance and another like cunning or aggression. Still having a big space unit to be able to bring down, even if this is only a 2 of, it's still an effective 2 of and going to get a lot of value out of it by just pulling damage off of things that you want to pull the damage off of. Next, we have a really, really, really good aggression event, and that is for a cause I believe in. This is a 3 cost heroism aggression innate event. Reveal the top 4 cards of your deck. For each heroism card revealed this way, deal 1 damage to an enemy base. You may discard any of the revealed cards and put the rest back on top of your deck in any order. This is a rare. It is number 152 out of 252 in SOR. If you build your deck to only have heroism cards, every time you play this card, you will deal 4 damage to your opponent's base. This is actually a great stand-in for aggression decks that want to just hit face as much as possible instead of open fire. Open fire can be used to take off problematic units off the board, but for a cause I believe in, furthers your goal of blowing up your opponent, but also being able to filter your draws for the next turn or 2 turns, or just get things off the top of your deck that you just don't want to see there. Because you can discard all 4 of the cards and just get a fresh new set of cards either the next time that you use this or when you go to draw draw at the end of your turn. This is a fantastic card. I've already slotted this into my Sabine aggression build, which hopefully you will see sometime in the near future. And I'm very excited to have this on the board and be able to play. First of all, great scene from Rogue One. And just an all-around baller card to be able to run 3 of, to just say, you know what, if I'm running all heroism and I see all 3 of these, that's 12 damage to your base. That's almost half. That is half if your opponent, a little bit less than half, if your opponent's running a 25 health base. Our last card from the FFG live stream was a type of card that was speculated by the spreadsheeters in the Discord, and they were correct. And it's a very interesting design. We have here the Volunteer Soldier. This is a 3-cost ground unit with no aspect whatsoever. This can be played as a 3-cost in every single deck in the entire game, unless something down the line restricts you to just your aspects chosen. 2 power, 3 health, Trooper, Raid 1. If you control a Trooper unit, this costs 1 less to play. It is a common, number 248 out of 252 in SOR. First things first, this thing is going to be fantastic in limited settings, draft and sealed. I imagine that this is going to be a pick that a player will pick pretty much every time in a round, pick like 5 or 6 if they see it passed to them, or if it is something that they know they're going to get passed back. In regular constructed, there are likely going to be more units that are trooper based that are going to be better than running Volunteer Soldier. But for right now, it actually is a pretty decent card because there are a lot of troopers. It can come out in any trooper deck for 2 costs, and it has Raid, which makes it a 3/3 on attack. It's one of our little Naboo security forces. It's a very interesting card design. I believe there are 3 more neutral quote unquote aspect cards. I don't remember exactly what the spreadsheeters have, if it was 2 or 4, but we will see at least 1 more of these in the future, I believe. It's an interesting design. We'll see how they continue in other sets to build these null aspect cards, but I don't imagine that they will see a lot of constructed play over the lifetime of Star Wars Unlimited. On December 13th, this past Wednesday, FFG held another live stream, likely the last Star Wars Unlimited live stream for the year, because we have Christmas and New Year's and all that other stuff coming up. And in that live stream, it was a deck building / gameplay stream. And the reason why it was called that is because they played 2 games, and the deck building portion was them just going over the choices for building decks. So we had 2 games, both played by Tyler and Jeremy. So we're going to do these in pairs. Our first deck here is Tyler's Vader deck. This is a aggression villainy command, so you can see right here, running 3 copies of Death Star Stormtrooper, 2 copies of Benthic 2 Tubes, 3 copies of the regular TIE Line Fighter, 3 copies of General Tag, 3 copies of Seasoned Shore Trooper, 3 First Legion Snow Trooper, 3 Partisan Insurgent, 3 Snow Trooper Lieutenants, 3 General Veers, 3 Volunteer Soldiers, 1 Grand Moff Tarkin, 3 Imperial Interceptors, 3 TIE Advanced, 3 Precision Fire, 3 Force Choke, 1 Vader's Lightsaber, 3 Keep Fighting, and 3 I Am Your Father. Very trooper synergistic, even if you are running 2 Rebels in here. Rebels don't actually matter. It's troopers. The ability to keep the damage on the opponent's base with Vader and then keep some of the other units in control was the idea behind playing mostly villainy. As you can see, there were a couple of non-villainy cards, but that's not as huge of a deal when you do have such a large villainy package, focusing on getting those troopers into battle and extra bonus tokens onto troopers and late game trooper reinforcements with like Seasoned Shore Trooper, to be able to just do extra damage and do cool things. The other deck, as voted on by chat, apparently, I can't actually confirm to you who built this. It wasn't Jeremy, but it's a Chewbacca Vigilance Heroism command deck running 3 R2D2, 3 2-1B Medical Droid, 3 3POs, 3 Battlefield Marines, 3 Restored ARC 170s, 3 Alliance X-Wings, 2 Regional Governors, 3 Admiral Akbars, 3 Wing Leaders, 3 Yodas, 2 Bright Hopes, 2 Callus, 3 Redemption, 2 Home Ones, 3 Entrenched, 3 Resupply, 3 Takedown, and 2 Vanquished. The idea behind this is to keep units on the board that will allow Chewie to give them Sentinel to keep the opponent in check until Chewie can flip and be able to deal a ton of extra damage onto the opponent's board, utilizing other Sentinel forces such as the Bright Hope and Redemption in space, Callus to be able to knock out ground units, and Regional Governor to be able to just name a card and say, no, none of that. Shame on you. Regional Governor was not played in this game at all, as far as I can remember. We did see the takedowns. We did see Home 1. I don't know that Redemption actually came out, but Jeremy did a really good job of controlling Tyler's board and making it so that he couldn't really get the damage out to threaten the base which is basically what Chewy is supposed to do. I actually kind of wish that this matchup had been reversed, that Tyler played the Chewy deck and Jeremy played the Vader deck. He thinks that Chewy is not bad, and the rest of us think that Chewy is not good. There are differences in what those terms are, but it would have been interesting to see the person that claims that Chewy is a good leader to play the leader and prove the point. I think that Jeremy being good on Chewy does not necessarily mean that Chewy is good. It just that means that Jeremy is a really good player, and it is what it is. Next, we have the two decks that were used by the players in the second game. We'll start with Tyler's technically this was Danny's Han Solo deck that Tyler was playing. We're running Han Solo with the Catacombs of Kadera. We have 3 Spec Force soldiers, 3 Leia Organas, 3 R2D2s, 3 3POs, 3 Gold Squadron A-Wings, 2 Lethal Insurgents, 3 Ezra Bridgers, 3 Millennium Falcons, 3 Red 3s, 3 K2SOs previewed this week, 2 Chewbacca units, 2 Lando Calrissians, 3 Black Ones, 3 Han Solos, 3 Mace Windus, 2 Bamboozles, 3 For a Cause I Believe In, and 3 You're My Only Hopes. Danny's goal on this deck was to build something that utilizes You're My Only Hope to be able to get something out at a 6 or 7 cost, 4 or 5 cost or less, depending on how much you're paying with You're My Only Hope. The one time You're My Only Hope went off, he flipped a Spec Force soldier, Tyler did, and that was the joke that Danny talked about last week in the stream. Was sometimes you'll see something really big come off the top of the deck when the player has a few life left, and other times, more often than not, you see a 1 cost flip. And honestly, that's to be expected. Next, we have Jeremy's, and this is actually the most exciting deck for me personally because I'm a very big Cunning fan. This is Jeremy's double Cunning deck, notably the only deck to run a 25 health base. We have Boba Fett, we have Jeddah City. We have 3 copies of Cartel Spacer, 3 copies of Boba Fett, 3 7th Fleet Defenders, 3 Fett Fire Sprays, 3 No Good to Me Deads, 3 Bodhi Rooks, 3 Cunnings, 3 Greedos, 3 Crafty Smugglers, 2 Shoot First, 3 Surprise Strike, 3 Time Lion Fighters, 3 Snowtrooper Lieutenants, 3 Viper Probe Droids, 3 Cell Block Guards, 3 General Veers, and 3 TIE Advance. Notably, 3 copies of every card in the deck except for Shoot First, which has 2. That does add up to 50 cards. This is how you're going to see most decks built. I do like the flavor of having multiple 2s or like a 1 or a 2, but realistically most decks are going to be packing 6, I believe it's 16 3-ofs and then 1 your 17th set, which is a 2-of. What ended up realistically happening is that I think I know why the Viper Probe Droid is in here. It's because there was another card that Jeremy wanted to play that he wasn't able to play, but it's also that knowledge of your opponent's hand, which is very helpful, especially when you can do things to get rid of cards out of your opponent's hand, such as Bodhi Rook, or just know what your opponent's strategy is going to be coming up for. Tyler wasn't really able to utilize the strategy of Your My Only Hope very much. He was able to put a lot of damage out, but ultimately it came down to the fact that Jeremy is really good at this game and went 2-0, and it's all the more surprising that he went 2-0 here and was able to get the wins last week too, or last time they played, when he got 2-0'd by Danny with the starter decks. So I think a lot of that comes up to, I think Jeremy's on-stream record is actually 3-3 right now because he won one game. He blew Tyler away in the first game, lost in the second game, and then won both of these games while losing the 2 starter deck games. These were very, very fun to watch. These are probably the most fun games to watch because I think it gives a real showcase at the breadth and dearth of the game. Even if we don't know every card, there's a lot of decks that are probably going to look very similar to these ones that we've seen here, especially an Aggression Cunning deck, maybe not necessarily built around Han Solo, but is built in this aspect pairing. And then you have the double Cunning, which is talked about a lot, and then you're going to have something like Vigilance Command, which is another style of deck that's based around controlling what your opponent can do and winning in the late game. So I think watching these games, links in the description below, is going to be very important for players to understand how the game is played. And realistically, that also means you should be checking out as much content as you possibly can that's within reason of people playing the game with decks probably at this point and on, because there's not likely too many cards that are going to make huge swathing impacts. A lot of the archetypes, except for the leaders we haven't seen, are pretty much set. And at this point, playing games is probably a lot more logical than it has been in the past. But those are the decks as they were shown to us. We did get a couple of previews. Tyler managed to get a bunch of previews in. Jeremy managed to get a couple of previews in. And as we saw before, they were very fun previews and a lot of really cool cards and a lot of really cool gameplay. And that's it. That's all she wrote in the stream itself that we watched. There were a couple of questions that were answered, but they were all questions that already had answers. So that's more just for the people who are only watching the YouTube videos or live streams and not participating in literally any other aspect of the community as a whole. I don't know why my camera is off sides. I'll have to fix that. But that's it. Cool decks. Very cool cards. I'm cooking up something for deck builds. You'll see in a future video. I haven't decided if I'm going to do it on this coming up Saturday or Christmas Day. We'll see what ends up happening. Obviously, engagement is an issue with videos on YouTube, so I have to be careful about where I put things, when I put things. But look forward to that when it shows up. Previews are definitely going to slow down. I believe we still have one preview coming out on Friday of a leader, but I'm not entirely sure. We'll cover that in the next week. And bare minimum, next week might just be deck stuff with a preview here and there. So thank you very much for joining me, everybody. Remember to like the video, comment down below your thought processes for what is going on. Subscribe to the channel. Really helps us out, gets us the numbers going. Follow me on all of the other social media sites. RybackStun is pretty much what I'm at everywhere else. Check out another one of my videos. I've got a bunch of them. They're all conveniently posted in a playlist called Star Wars Unlimited. Leave it on in the background, mute it, do whatever. Any help is appreciated. Thank you very much, folks. I appreciate each and every one of you. And with that, I will see you in the stars.